Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, and happy birthday to Phobies. We're a little bit late. We're a little bit late because the guest of honor, of course, was missing for a little bit, but Vendy is back, as you may or may not be able to squint and see next door over there. And the new update is upon us. So we have an out-of-band stream. We're going to be talking about the update, about the new Phobies, the different things that are added, and, of course, celebrating a little bit because it has been 1 year. What's good, everybody? How's everyone doing out there? Hope the beginning of your week is going well. Sorry, baby. You're a good baby. She's not happy about all the other stuff. By the way, Chad, I kept banging my head on the ceiling with this stupid hat. Just saying. But I sacrificed for everybody. I sacrificed for everyone. All right, let's get into it, chat. So we do have a lot of things to cover tonight, chat. There's a significant amount in this update. I want to give my thoughts, both good and, we'll say, otherwise, about the 1 year celebration. Now, we did spend a little bit of time earlier this week, depending on how you view the weeks, but this past Sunday, talking about the great Vendy Search. And honestly, I'm not going to recap it all, but I did have a lot of fun. I did enjoy it. I think it was pretty cool. I think it was a fun idea. I think it was definitely a good thing, TM to do. I think that overall, I would rather have had the great Vendy Search than not had it. There's arguments to have changed it, even removed it, but I think that it's better that it's here. Now, that isn't really what everybody came here for. What everybody really came here for was to talk about the patch. Now, I am going to try in editing to just put this stuff up there. We're going to go through the patch notes. I'm going to add it to the overlay real quick. And then we'll kind of go from there. Quick aside, everybody, before we get into the actual content, I was accepted into the Phobies Content Affiliate Program, the content creator program, you might call it. Shout out to the Phobies team, and thank you for that. But the reason I'm telling you, everybody out there, dear viewer, dear listener, is to let everybody know that I do receive some compensation from the Phobies team as a result of being part of that program. Now, I loved Phobies before, and I still love Phobies now, and I expect I will still continue to love Phobies in the future. So look forward to more Phobies content coming from Random's Thoughts. So now, on with the show. So yeah, we're going to run through the patch notes and we'll talk about it a little bit. So, if you'll follow along with the class, please. The Birthday Masquerade will be the first major event of the year, commemorating the 1 year anniversary of the terrifying world of Phobies. Players will be welcomed with an array of exciting new features, including the release of limited time events, where players rack up points by completing special assignments to achieve milestones and receive special rewards. The party doesn't stop there. The 8 new Phobies featuring 4 unique abilities will be available for players to unlock, as well as 3 new maps set in an eerie new environment to explore. Thank you for enjoying Phobies over this past year. We're delighted to celebrate our birthday with all of you. Happy battling, the Phobies team. Well, shout out first of all to the Phobies team because it has been a fantastic year of Phobies. And that's not me. I mean, I am a content affiliate. I put that disclaimer everywhere I can, hence the hashtag content affiliate in everything. It's really been fun. And I would have been streaming Phobies even if I wasn't a content affiliate. I would have been producing content for Phobies even if there wasn't a content affiliate program, because I really have been enjoying this game and I'm very excited about this. So in all seriousness, yes, full disclosure, I am part of the content affiliate program, but thank you, Phobies team. I really do love this game. I've had a lot of fun over the last year, and I'm looking forward to having a lot of fun over the next year and hopefully many years in the future. But we'll worry about the next year first. We got to, live life in the moment, right? So what do we have in the moment for the Birthday Masquerade, as pointed out here? Well, we do have the 8 new Phobies, and we will be delving into them. I was thankfully able to shout out to my Discord for pointing out the games so that I could get it added to the album, and then we could take a peek at the Phobies, hence why I'm doing this in my more condensed form rather than the other overlay. So we'll talk about the Phobies later. What are the other things in this update? Well, we do get a bunch of portraits, specifically 5, We get Dial, we get Ice Cream, which I'm not going to lie, might be my favorite Phobie name out of all of them so far. We get Rockus. We get Ogre, who has to be a Shrek reference. I refuse to believe that is not. And then there's Whuffalo Will, who I think I mentioned this when we were talking about the great Vendy search. But it's Will Whuffalo. Because they said that the given name was Will and the surname was Whuffalo. Hence, its given name is your first name and surname is your last name. It's weird. It's weird. I don't know. I feel like I'm the only person who's read that much into it. And it's one of those, it feels as though it's a psychology experiment where everyone's just lying to me. It's like, well, what color is this apple? And everyone in the room says it's purple. And I'm like, no, it's red. And they're like, no, it's purple. Are you insane? That's what it feels like right now. Anyway, continuing. Vendy's birthday bash. We're celebrating our first birthday, but Vendy has some gifts for you. Vendy's even brought his very festive party hat. We got the hat. Just for the occasion, between March 14th and March 20th, get a special gift from Vendy just by logging in each day. Gifts are available each day after midnight UTC, but act fast. Gifts will disappear once the new day begins. So if you haven't noticed, I did this offline, so I didn't have it available. By the way, shout out to the Phobies team for the sweatshirt. This was from past Fright Nights. The first day's gift, and by the time this goes live on YouTube, if you're watching this live on the Twitch stream, you can check the link for that in the description. If you're watching this live on the Twitch stream, go log in so you can make sure you get your free 7-day experience boost. Definitely helps. Just throwing that out there. So next up is limited time events. Now, these were already mentioned as, well, you can see right here. First event is coming soon. They're not actually here yet. Find active events in the quest screen in their own dedicated tab. I looked at that offline. While an event is active, players can earn event points by completing special assignments while playing the game. Rack up enough event points and you'll meet a milestone where you'll earn event rewards. The higher the milestone, the greater the rewards you'll receive. Can you reach the highest goal before the event ends? I think this is a cool idea. To me, it's very reminiscent of a battle pass. Now, that has gotten a very negative connotation throughout a variety of games in recent times. I'm not really opposed to something like this. I think this is cool. I think this is important. So one of the biggest complaints that people, and myself included, will levy against Phobies, and this is a great time, it's 1 year. Let's give people somewhat of a catch-up mechanic. There's a way that people can put in extra time, extra effort, and try and close the gap. Now, you can make the argument that all the people that are putting in a ton of money can play the same. We'll have to see how this is actually implemented, but this is pretty cool. I'm glad that this is here. Next up is maps. In the chilly void of space lies our eerie new map location. Plot new strategies as you do battle on 3 new maps: the Pyro Abyss, Mesophobe, and Naughts and Crosses. So we'll have to see how this goes. The remainder of the stuff is, bug fixes, Vendy being back, although that's not really a bug fix. I guess he did. I don't know. Whatever. We'll let it go. But basically some stability fixes, notably some quest things got corrected, fixing some animations, things like that. All good stuff. Definitely good. Overall, and I see comments from chat. We'll circle back to them momentarily. Overall, my thoughts are, I'm pretty satisfied with this overall. I know I said overall like 10 times there, but in general, grand scheme, 10,000 foot view, macro scale, insert whatever your idiom of choice is. I'm pretty satisfied with this. I think, we were expecting new Phobies. This is the standard amount. It appears that every update from here on out, we can safely expect 8 Phobies. I was somewhat expecting a little bit more with this one, because it is the 1 year anniversary. So, hey, maybe the team had some other stuff up their sleeve. They're going to drop out a whole bunch of new Phobies, and we're going to get this larger infusion. But, it takes a lot of effort to put Phobies together, balance them out, get the art right, get the lore right, get this right, get that right. So I'm happy with this. I can take it. The portraits are whatever. It's just cosmetics. Speaking of cosmetics, I'm a little surprised that we still haven't seen some form of purchasable, earnable cosmetic for in-game things. There have been a lot of suggestions, whether it's hats, it's skins, it's new portraits, both on the cards as well as the player portraits. Variety of like little things to go on the heart, and the list goes on. There's a lot of things. I'm surprised we haven't seen something like that, but I mean, that may not be in the cards. The birthday bash is interesting. I did see a comment in chat. I mentioned that we'll come back to the comments in a moment, but I did see a comment in chat saying I'm surprised we didn't see sales or something like that. And truthfully, I'm a little surprised as well. I would have expected that we would have received some additional sales, and that isn't to say that they're not coming. At the time of this recording, we don't see any extras, but maybe they'll be there. I was kind of expecting another Bad Omen pack. Maybe it didn't do well and people didn't like it, so therefore they didn't repeat it. But I hope that something like that comes back. And maybe we'll see that as we get the extra deals for the birthday bash, whatever it happens to be. Now, the limited time events I'm very excited for. Part of me says, oh, they're just going to be juiced up quests. Well, play a whole bunch of games where you dump X number of undead in play, or Y number of monsters, or Z number of dimensionals, that sort of thing. I would expect more from the Phobies team, that they're not just going to, I mean, I'm sure that'll play into it, but I anticipate there's going to be more to these. It's going to be more meaty, more relevant, but I do expect that they are going to require players to modify their gameplay, to encourage different things to happen. I think that's good in general. I don't like it personally, me, as a player, like literally just me, because I want to play what I want to play. That being said, I think this is great for the purpose of mixing things up on the ladder, encouraging different play styles, assuming it goes that way. Maybe it's going to be something wildly different. I have no idea, but I'm excited to see what these are and see how it goes. Now, of course, since we did not get balance updates, one of the biggest things in this patch for me is 3 new maps. I've always said that maps are maybe the most important thing in the game. I mean, right up there next to Phobies. Because the fact of the matter is that maps drastically impact your strategy in a given game. You don't typically go with the same game plan on Billy's Room as you do on Hold Still, or on Moai versus the Big House, or, things like that. Your game plan will change based on the map, so introducing new maps also keeps things from being stale. We had those complaints several months ago where people were whining about, oh, well, everyone plays the same stuff. Now, I disagreed with that for a variety of reasons, but let's assume that was true, sake of argument. Adding new maps on top of new Phobies, we're changing the number of variables in a drastic way. So this is really exciting. This is very, very exciting. Now, the big question is going to be, how many of these are big maps and how many are small maps? We'll have to wait and see. I'm excited to find out. But everybody out there, both Twitch chat, if you're watching this live, if you're watching this on YouTube, the links for Twitch, as well as my Discord, of course, in the description. By the way, while you're down there, likes and subscribes. But what are you most excited about for this patch so far with what you've seen? We haven't quite gone into the Phobies yet, which we will get to momentarily. But let's check in with chat and see what's going on. Let's see what people have had to say so far. Got a little big bad sushi action. I'm not sure why. Got a little bees going on. GG. Erk's got Rockus. Nice. One of my acing games immediately after the patch drop had a Rockus in it, which was kind of funny. Got a little party hack unconventionally pink. I think it's appropriate. I scream, you scream, we all scream, and I scream. I think we will. Opened a horrific pack, got Sparky, finally got another 7-key Phobie. Kind of sad I didn't get one of the new ones, but I'm getting new Phobies, so that's a win. Hey, new Phobie is a new Phobie. If it's new in your collection, it's new, even if you've seen it before. Want to try Rockus versus a tractor? Might it do against RT with Challenge the Streamer. We're not going to do any challenges tonight, but yeah, we could definitely get that one in. I'm going to be excited how that goes. Fitting for somebody with a garlic face, layers. Yep, ogres have layers. That's why I'm convinced it's a Shrek joke. Let's just call him Willy. I'm assuming for Will Whuffalo. Yep. It's like Buffalo Bill. That's why they call him Whuffalo Will. Like, I get it. But it's Will Whuffalo. I'm not backing down on this. I refuse. I'm surprised no birthday portraits like Christmas. Yeah, that's actually a little surprising that we didn't get even though we're the same portraits with just a party hat on it. I'd be a little surprised. Or I am a little surprised, rather. I'm wishing for more Phobies, but I'm happy with this update. Yeah, I think this is pretty solid. Range freeze mech turret. Yeah, it's kind of scary. A lot of people are talking crap about Wiggy, and I'm here to prove them wrong. When I do get Wiggy, I'll utilize him to his fullest potential and show the world that this centipede of carnage can take on the world. It's not quite a centipede, but it is a pincher bug, as we would call them out here. Seems kind of mediocre compared to other two keys. Well, we're going to get into that momentarily. I also think the Bad Omen pack was later in Carnival of Fear, so we should expect a bundle. Maybe it's Will or Dial, but I don't think it's going to be Bad Omen again. I wouldn't think it's Bad Omen. I don't remember when it showed up in Carnival, but yes. Stat seems pretty good for a stat stick 2 key. The problem I have with Wiggy, spoiler alert, is that it doesn't survive a combination of single hits from regular low keys. So, for example, Cassowary plus Jar will kill Wiggy. If it tanked that, I'd be way more excited, but I imagine it wouldn't have the stats it does if it did. And no, we haven't had a balance update. For me, it's potential free resources and new phobies and then maps. Yep. Wiggy's going to be an absolute powerhouse, and I'll prove you all wrong. Why are you so obsessed with this bug? I like the XP boost because my phobies are average level 6 in Doomsday 2. Ooh, then you're going to get a big boost out of this. Wait, do we see the new maps? No, not yet. How many people will have the picture of Buffalo football team playing Whuffalo? Maybe. Maybe they'll just have some butterfly pictures with the other reference. It's all about ice cream. I'm not biased because he's the first new phobie I got. First new phobie. Well, grats. All right, chat. Speaking of new phobies, let's go down the list. Again, shout out to my Discord for helping me out trying to find where all the new phobies are. So, again, I'm doing this not in my larger form. Nobody cares about my face. They care about seeing the phobies. That's the important part. And here we have Wiggy. That's a nice ear you've got there. Earwig time. Earwig time. I really wish. All right, first complaint about the patch. The flavor text should have been, that's a nice ear you've got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. That should have been the flavor text, but we'll accept it. I will accept it for now. So Wiggy, common, notably for you Tiny Terrors fans. If you're not sure what Tiny Terrors is, hit up my Discord. We're trying to get a league together for, we'll say, pauper phobies, where it's strictly going to be commons and uncommons allowed. More details in the Discord. But Wiggy is a 2-cost, 740 health, 2 move, melee, and 600 damage. 600 damage. So here's the thing. As mentioned briefly earlier, Wiggy does not really tank 2 hits from a lot of lower cost phobies. The reason that's significant, because chat and other people elsewhere have pointed out, say, Gesundheit, Maggie, that sort of thing. Both of those other phobies are fairly high damage, and one is more mobile than the other because it has flying and 2 range. One is slower, but flying. You have a lot of differences between these 3, but they're kind of comparable. And the thing is I agree with chat. Yeah, we're looking at potential AWOL scenarios. The problem is that for me, as a melee phobie, it needs to be able to connect. So it's not simply, oh, I'll hang out of range and then run into range and go, all right, I get 1 hit. I get 1 hit with that Gesundheit, and that means I push so much damage, in conjunction with everything else, of course, that I off whatever the thing is I'm going in on. Wiggy needs that, like, extra space because it's not ranged. so that way it can actually close the distance, right? So the problem is Wiggy tanky enough to actually connect? And hashtag doubt. Press X to doubt. It's obviously an enormous amount of damage if you're actually able to connect, but I'm a little concerned about its ability to do its job, truthfully. Now, Maggie has flying, so you could hide it behind obstacles and get over. You could get to things with Gesundheit just because it has range. Wiggy's going to require a little bit more effort in order to actually get it to get there. And I hope that it does. I really hope that it does. Right now I'm a little skeptical, but it's hard to ignore 600 damage on a 2-key. Even at a single hit, that might be significant. That might be just enough to be able to take down something big. But for all the people that are saying it's a bigger AWOL, while I agree, are you willing to spend twice as many keys for AWOL? I don't know. That's a quarter health of most average larger phobies if you can connect. If you can connect. Now, one way to look at it is if it's a larger AWOL. AWOL often dies to a single hit. This requires 2. So is that worth twice as many keys? You can make an argument. You can make an argument. I'm very interested actually to see what Wiggy's attack animation is, in all seriousness. I'm kind of looking forward to this. We'll have to see. Most people were skeptical about Daisy and it turned out good. We'll wait to see until it tests out. I think there's like an ocean between Wiggy and Daisy. Those are wildly different phobies. Like, Daisy's ranged and has resurrect. I am on the more skeptical end with Wiggy, personally. I could absolutely see the value. But the thing is, on level, I expect 2 1-keys to be able to kill Wiggy. We'll see. We'll see. We'll play it by ear, chat. So one thing I will point out before we truly get into Dial is that we are getting multiple low-cost phobies. Low-cost being 2 and 3. We haven't had a whole lot of those between Full Disclosure and Carnival. Yeah, we had Bad Omen, but... and Boomer, I guess. But the big thing is that we haven't really had a whole lot of low-cost phobies in order to supplement and change fundamentally many games. Because think about it. Even on big maps, certainly on small maps, but even on big maps, your low-cost phobies are the ones that impact the majority of the game, right? You're pretty much always playing your Razormouths, your Contortios, your Cassowaries, your Unicorns, those sort of things. So supplementing those forces with new options is a big deal. So what are we looking at here with Dial? Well, it's a 3-cost, 950 health, 2 movement, 1 range, aka melee, 260 damage. So we're not looking at an enormous amount of stats. Now, let's put it this way. Jar is 220 damage at level 1. We're not looking at a huge amount of damage. So what does it make up for it with? Well, it has Stay Tuned, removes 1 enemy action, has a warm-up of 1 and a cooldown of 2. Reduces the enemy unit's actions by 1. Actions. That's huge. Huge. Like, this is a potentially enormously powerful ability. Especially on a 2-mover. Because this is not a 1-mover that's going to turret and suddenly like, oh, well, your opponent can't, you know, by the time they inch it up, you've already built up your forces, so you can make this stuff change. You can do different things. Dial means that I'm getting in there and I'm turning off one of your phobies effectively. I'm having. Look at this as a damage reduction. Think about all the times that your opponent advanced. They hit you once and they're like, oh, well, next turn, I'm going to hit you twice. And the damage output from that is too much. You have to back off. Dial says, hey, buddy, I don't know if you thought about this, but how about no? Just putting that out there for consideration. How about no? Just saying. This, and chat's pointing out Cerberus, but other one movers or other things like that, this is crippling early game. Potentially, anyway. This seems incredibly powerful. Now, the thing is that there is a cooldown. It's fairly low. It's not really low, but it's not as high as we've seen. It's not as low as we've seen. But this has the potential to really ruin your opponent's plans. I'm super excited to see how Dial works and whether it lives up to expectations. But I'm kind of concerned also about how Dial works and whether it lives up to expectations, because this thing could be busted. This thing could be really busted. Like, this has the potential to really upend a lot of things. Is it going to, for example, push out turret openers? Probably not, because you're not really going to stop them with this. You know what I mean? You're never going to get across the board in time to shut them down, or I don't expect that you would. Your opponent would probably have to do something weird, or you open Dial and, like, they walk into it. I don't know. The stats are kind of low, because I'm seeing chat point out that it's decently balanced, and I would agree. I think the stats are kind of low on this guy, which understandably they have to. For example, if you compare it to, say, Minotaur. I mean, mine's level 10, but you get way more health out of this thing than you do Dial. And the damage is also fairly low. Are they the same stats as Clinico? It sounds about right. Let's pull up the spreadsheet. Give me a moment, chat. I gotta pull it up. Obviously, I didn't have a whole lot of time between the stream and now to try and do what I did for Carnival. Nope, not Contortio. Clinico. So this has 200 more health and 50 more damage than Clinico. Just to give you some scale. Now, compared to Bowmangles has 1,550 health and 420 damage. Haha, funny number. So there are some fairly different or significant differences. Dial is only scary to people who don't have Boss 3.0. I think Doyle... yeah. Take two. I think Dial will have more impact than that. The thing is that Dial, because of its arguably terrible stats, is going to be in a weird spot. Like, how many Firkins can your team sustain, kind of thing. And plus, this doesn't have a 4 range like Firkin, so you can't just go, oh, I'm on the other side of the map and I'm still turning off your dude. You need to kind of get up there and do something. But Chad is pointing out a cool interaction, Dial plus boss, or Dial plus Smiley equals dead boss. I don't know about that, but there is the option to just prevent your opponent from retreating when you want to get up in their face. Whether it's with Smiley, it's with melee phobies, it's with whatever. You can get on something and stay there. Hypothetically, anyway. One thing I didn't point out is that it removes the enemy action for 2 turns. So it's not just next turn, it's lasting more than 1 turn. Dial and Resurrects against solo enemies would be nice. I mean, it feels like that's kind of... It's not quite magical Christmas land, but that's like living the dream. You already have multiple bodies with a Resurrect against their singular body. You're pretty far ahead no matter what, right? Dial feels a little overpowered in the right hands. I think it's way too early to call things over or underpowered. I always feel like that. Yes, there are times when, oh my god, this thing has to be good in any game, right? I played card games, like I've said before, since 94, and competitively since basically then. Phobies is a different type of game, but the reality is this sort of thing applies across genres. yes, there are some things that are clearly standouts. There's some things that are clearly underperforming immediately. And everybody gets things right or gets things wrong sometimes. But my general opinion is it's difficult to truly assess things until you actually try them out. And especially in Phobies, to me, what makes a Phobie good or bad is how regularly you can make something happen. Dial feels like it's going to more regularly than not be valuable. We'll see. We'll see. You can make bad sushi overpowered, but that's not how it works. I doubt the former, and I understand what you're saying. Like, I agree with you, Akune. It's going to depend. It's going to depend. So next up, another 3 cost is Creepy Devil. We, in fact, get a Sasquatch supplement. We get a Sasquatch supplement. It's a 3 cost, 900 health, 2 move. It's also melee, a meager 350 damage. Now you see me. It'll go invisible for 3 turns with a plus 400 damage bonus. Of course, it will die if it gets stepped on. 1 turn warm up, 3 turn cooldown. The first attack while invisible deals double damage. This isn't quite double. This feels like a misnomer. Because obviously 400 is more than 350, so like 750 is more than 700. I'm not sure if this is tacked on or if this is slight error in the wording. But we'll go with what the front of the card says and kind of talk about it from there. If that ends up not being accurate, it's not. We haven't seen a whole lot of Sasquatch up to this point. And that might be where this text for Now You See Me comes from, is maybe Sasquatch exactly doubles. I don't remember, because it's a stress level Phobie, so I can't see it. At least not in client, anyway. But Creepy Devil is interesting. First of all, I do love that they're adding multiple ways to get the gameplay experience for Phobies. So what do I mean by that? If you want an AoE Phobie, for example, there's a variety of them. If you want a damage buffer, you have Gonzo and you have Scritch. If you want things that turn off tiles, you have Honey Bear and Charon. Maybe not a great example, but there's a ton of Resurrect Phobies. There's a ton of Flying Phobies. There's a lot of different Phobies where the abilities overlap. Now, there's still a few that are unique, such as Clobster. Yes, there are other burrow ones, but nothing with quite that range. And, of course, I mean, you have Poles, but then there's Akira, and they're kind of not in the same ballpark, but you get the idea. The point here is that invisibility was previously uniquely tied to Sasquatch, and now, even if you're lucky enough, even if you don't have all the stress levels, you now can have access to an invisible Phobie, which I think is really cool, and I love that the team added this kind of stuff. I'm very excited to see what the animation for this is. I mean, to be honest, I'm excited to see all the animations, but seeing another invisibility Phobie is exciting. Since it's an ultra rare, we may not see it for a while. It is notably undead. I didn't call out that the previous Phobies were monster and mechanical, respectively. But this is pretty cool. As to the actual playability, I'm not sure. You can clearly snipe something. I can't quite grok in my head, and again, I didn't have a whole lot of time between when the patch released, because it was only a few hours ago, and now, like right this second. I'm not sure how many things you can one-shot offhand. Like, we can look at the spreadsheet real quickly, but I'm not going to find it real fast. Obviously, there's a ton of 1-drops, 2-drops, some, but not a lot. And a number of those are also resurrect, excuse me. I was going to say mechanical, but that's not what I meant. There's some 3-drops, but not many. And then basically past that, well, there's paddles, but the vast majority past that, you're not getting things. Repeller. I don't even remember the last time I saw a repeller. Point is that this one's going to have a hard time sniping things on level. Chat saying check Snowball and Murder Wing. I'm pretty sure you can't get Snowball. Snowball. Oh, I take it back. Snowball has 700 health. Whoop, I can't type. Murder Wing has 695. So you can snipe each of those. But here's the problem. Are you willing to trade this? I guess in the grand scheme, it's not uncommon to trade Murder Wing for Jar or vice versa, Snowball for Murder Wing, Jar, etc., where you have this relationship, and this might just be another thing that allows you to do that, which seems fine. Like, that's okay. I'm more excited by the potential where it can set up some crazy plays where, yes, you can't necessarily one-shot something immediately, but even on level, it could represent an enormous amount of damage, a huge chunk of an opposing Phobie's life total, and it brings it into range where just the combination of this plus other things allows you to snipe it. If nothing else, we're now twice as likely, at the very least, to see more invisible Phobies. So, game review night is going to get very interesting. Game review night is going to get very interesting. You can gonzo it? Yes, you can go full commando and just annihilate something. That's actually a good call, Viego, that this is going to be an async terror. Like trap Phobies, prepare for this to tear up your async games. This will absolutely demolish your async games, and it's probably going to be miserable for that reason. It's going to be hilarious. Seems more value to one-shot bosses and stuff with the help of a team. Maybe at three keys is... Like, if you trade 3 keys for a boss, most people will do that, right? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to make that happen, I think. Pretty sure the game reminds you there's an invisible Phobie like it does with Sasquatch. Does it do it every turn, though? I truthfully have only played against, I think, like 1 Sasquatch, so I don't remember. But I agree with chat that this opens up new potential game plans where, I mean, Gonzo already had a lot of value, right? But Gonzo and Scritch now have way more opportunities to just blow something up. And your opponent can't even feasibly protect unless they just completely run away. It does remind you every turn. Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. I'm actually kind of excited for this. I want to know what the model in-game, because this thing looks like a warthog to me. I don't know what other people are picturing for Creepy Devil, but I'm picturing a weird bipedal warthog. What do you think, chat? What do you think, YouTube? Let me know. For Creepy Devil, definitely, I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this. If you have buff something with Edgar Allan, then buff it with Gonzo, do they stack? I'm pretty sure they don't. You can't stack Gonzo and Edgar, or Scritch, rather. So I'm assuming you can't stack with Edgar. It proposes risky ideas. It only works if people are very accurate in their calculations, which I didn't see many people being hard calculating at Joy's. Wart Frog. I don't know if that's a typo or that's intended. Warthog that walks on 4 legs. We saw it in one of the Vendy puzzle videos. Did it walk? I thought it was just sitting, which, I mean, maybe it's just, you know, like crouching down. It just felt like putting its hands down. I don't know. But I kind of agree with Akune. Not a typo. I like the idea of a wart frog. Like that's hilarious to me. But yeah, I agree with you, Akune, that it will reward careful analysis. And I think that's valuable. It'll feel terrible when you lose to it, but I think that's valuable. So next up is the one that everybody was losing their minds over. It's ice cream. This is yet another phobie that I am intensely upset about. I'm actually angry about. Do you know why, chat? Can you predict why I'm angry about ice cream? Go ahead, take a guess. YouTube, pause the video and throw it in the comments. Let me know why you think I'm upset about this. But I'm actually upset about this phobia. And it's not the only one. It's by far not the only one. But I am upset about this phobia because there isn't flavor text on this phobia. I'm actually angry about it. Not like really angry, but I've talked about it before that there's a bunch of phobies that I want flavor text on. And because they have an ability, they get screwed. They get hosed. They don't get the full exposure, we don't get the full grasp of these phobies. The Vorthos. It hurts in here, chat. It hurts in here. But ice cream, chat. I actually am excited about this phobia in all seriousness. I scream, you die. I want your you want your ice cream flavored, not vanilla? The problem is vanilla is the only ice cream I like. So this gets a little weird. There's a ton of things that you can do. Like, this is... Chat, we got to run a contest. In all seriousness, let me know down in the comments on YouTube what you think, specifically for ice cream, what this should be. Because ice cream is just pleading for flavor text. It's begging. There's a single tear running down its cheek. So anyway, let's talk about ice cream. Ice cream is a 4-cost, 1200 health, 1 movement, 2 range, 410 damage phobie. Death a la mode. 2 range, 1 warm-up, 3 cooldown, and you freeze somebody. Just laughing at chat. This is actually pretty cool. We have our earliest game freeze phobie. So, of course, we have Yeti. We have Jeeves. We have... Who am I forgetting, chat? Rocket Man. Is there one other one? Is there another one? I don't know. But as chat's pointing out, this is kind of a tiny Rocket Man. It is a turret. People were saying it's... I've seen people say that it's better than Stabby. It's better than Bo Mangles. Is it, though? Maybe. Maybe. It's clearly more fragile than either. It doesn't necessarily ensure that something's getting taken down with it, a la Stabby. But an early game freeze is significant. It can absolutely help tilt things in your favor from a very early moment in the game. And I'm very excited about this. It does notably give more stock to fire phobies, your snowballs, your fire ants, your Hevo 3.0s, any of them. They allow you to, well, plainly bypass this. It doesn't quite, because it's still going to take time for this to happen. It's still going to take a moment for you to unfreeze them, but it does allow you to get out from under this. So I'm very excited for this, but if 4 costs, notably, it also requires a specific opener. You can't just go, oh, I'm going first, I'm going to slam ice cream on the board and inch it up, which clearly was a balance concession, right? This is pretty exciting. I am looking forward to seeing how ice cream performs, because this has a lot of potential. The cooldown is fairly long. If you've played Heartbreaker, I know it's a... As somebody with, as a heartbreaker abuser, as people will say, I don't have much room to complain, but a 3-turn cooldown is a very, very long time. Even if you play this early in the game. It takes time to inch it up, its turret, and then it takes time for the cooldown to wear off. You can't keep something permanently frozen. 2-turn freeze, 3-turn cooldown. They're going to have a window. This is going to be interesting. I am excited, like I said, to see it because there is a lot of potential to shake up early games. Like this, maybe this is an answer to turrets, for example. It's your counter turret as a turret. They march their turret up, you march up Ice Cream, you freeze their turret, and all of a sudden you can invade, especially onto Bowmangles, who's not going to have that reflect damage, whereas at least Stabby has that going for them. But this is interesting. Ice Age Gaming, Ice Cream, Rocket Man, Jeeves, Yeti. There are a lot of Phobies that are now, or at least Phobie themes, we'll say, that are getting supplemented, such as the freeze theme, that allow you to try and do those game plans. We talked about traps, we talked about other openers, and maybe freeze, just going all in on freeze is a thing. But as Chad is also pointing out, lava and fire still exist. Lava and fire still exist, so it's funny, as a rare, it shouldn't be showing up too much, but it might terrorize the lower ranks simply because people don't have access to Snowball. People may not have access to, well, like Hevo 3.0 or Fire Ant or things like that. Once you have a large enough collection, once you have enough experience, maybe Ice Cream won't be as scary. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. You'll have Ice Cream as a pogo stick leg. Sheesh, gaming is right. Glob is also technically a better freeze, especially if you have paddles. Yes and no, because you can dislodge from Glob immediately if you have a push or a pull. Do we know if that there aren't new tiles? We have no idea as far as I know. I don't think anything's been stated. I imagine they would have announced that if there was, but I don't know for sure. So we'll have to see. After Ice Cream, we have Rockus. So Rockus, chat's saying, so fun to see, the eye pops out everywhere. It is a little gross, I'm not going to lie. So I mentioned offline that I started a bunch of async games, so I logged in when I realized the patch had been pushed. And it was primarily to start a bunch of async games because there was the 7-day XP bonus. I saw a bunch of people mentioning in my Discord. So I log in. First game, we're on Megalo, and somebody plops a Rockus on the board. And it was actually hilarious. It's a little creepy, but Rockus is pretty cool. So what is Rockus? Well, Rockus is a 4-cost with 2k health, 2 movement. It has an AoE attack, melee, 350, and has sedimentary. Sedimentary is it can't be pushed, pulled, teleported, or swapped. So, similar to Boomer, this is just going to sit there. It's not going to be affected by the now oh-so-common Akiras. So, we're going to maybe see more of this, and as pointed out by Chad offline, you could use this with your own Akiras, which is going to make things very silly. Because it can't be impacted by those abilities, you can either manipulate your opponent's phobies or even your own by preventing them from being moved. Plus, Rockus is pretty tanky. I don't mind this Phobie. The damage output is clearly low, so I'm questioning whether this will really be I mean, I almost never use Boomer, but I'm trying to formulate my thoughts here. I think that there's potential for Rockus, and I like the idea that there are builds potentially forming. The reason I say that is if your opponent opens, say, Boomer Rockus or something like, early game, they get both of these Phobies on the board, maybe that is leading you to believe that there is an incoming Akira shortly. And then as we go on with additional Phobie updates or additional build orders, we'll say, that when you see Phobie X, Y, or Z within the early game in conjunction with Phobie ABC, that means that this particular big Phobie is going to show up instead of that one. Is that going to be likely? Maybe. Is that going to be the standard? I don't know. But I like that world where it's a little more predictable, and then it allows, and this is something that's nice in the world of I have a ton of Phobies, whether it's me or whoever, if you put yourself in that position. If you don't have a ton of Phobies and this game plan shows up, whatever it happens to be, and it is, or it requires a particular set of answers and you don't have them, that will suck. But it is interesting to, oh, well, they're doing a Boomer Rockus opener, so that means there's an Akira. That means I need to respond in this way. Versus if they do blah, 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 and that means it's leading into boss, I need to respond that way. That sort of thing. And that rewards people with game knowledge. It rewards people who can implement certain game plans. It obviously punishes people who aren't as into the quote-unquote meta or as up on their Phobies knowledge. Both have trade-offs, essentially, is what it comes down to. But as far as Rockus in particular goes, I think this Phobie's okay. I think the main thing is going to be... The main thing is its tankiness and sedimentary. It's obviously not representing a ton of damage, but it is an early game AoE Phobie. Yes, we've had Minotaur who's fairly tanky as well. So I wonder how much this is related to complaints about, say, the Once lore. Like, are we going to see Rockus on the Once lore a lot when that map comes back in rotation? Because now you have another Phobie that can't be push, pulled, swapped. And therefore, you can push certain strategies or you can avoid certain strategies. We'll have to see. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, Rockus is a little unsettling when you see it in game, but it's still a pretty cool Phobie. It's still pretty cool. So I almost missed a Phobie. Almost missed Tiny Tim. How can you miss Tiny Tim? I've watched A Muppet Christmas Carol 1,000 times. 1,000 times. Here's a question for you, chat. My wife says that I am one of the Muppets in A Muppet Christmas Carol. Which Muppet am I? I know she can't hear me right now, so you'll have to guess. She can't help you. You have to guess which Muppet I am. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about Tiny Tim. So Tiny Tim is a 6-cost, 1,600 health, 2 burrow movement, 1 range, aka melee, 475 damage Phobie. Its passive is Peekaboo, 50% damage suffered while underground. Now, it suffers half damage from enemy units. Terrain effects, poison, disease work normally. Attacking, aka Tiny Tim attacking, causes it to surface. Once above ground, burrows at the beginning of its next turn. So basically, you can move this thing around, and it will be protected. As soon as you attack, it's vulnerable. I think that logically makes sense, and people will get their head around it. This is one of those Phobies that, and sometimes this happens in games, where it's difficult to convey the idea in text, but once it happens, it's like, oh, well, yes, obviously. Like, everybody will get it. Is it going to be that difficult to figure out? I don't know, but I could see it being a little confusing reading it the first time you see it or the first time you get it, like when exactly it's live. But realistically, it attacks, it's vulnerable. It didn't attack, it's safe. Safe. The 50 damage, we've all had Phobies live at 1 health before, or opposing Phobies live at 1 health before. You'll get caught by some rounding things every once in a while, blue moon, but not the end of the world. The stats on it are kind of low. I mean, 1,600 health is not an enormous amount of health. And everybody in chat wants to compare it to Moly Bully, who actually also at 4 cost, starts at 1600 health and has 550 damage baseline at level 1. Damage should round up when halved. Okay. That's important to know. I mean, we'll be able to confirm shortly as more people play with it. I mean, well, to be honest, most people probably aren't going to check. They're just going to do it and go, oh, well, it lives, sort of thing. But yeah, it has somewhat anemic stats for a 6-drop, but you have to remember, you have to keep in mind, please do, QA member, all right. But you have to keep in mind that, of course, this thing has plus X amount of health because of Peekaboo. And as Shab was pointing out earlier, this could be an insane tank. If it never attacks, it has 3,200 health. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot of health, especially for a 6-drop. This can be very powerful. We don't currently have a taunt effect. Like something that forces your opponent to attack it. Like, yes, there are things that, well, clearly I have to attack that. But not really. Like, you don't really have to. For 6 keys, I'd rather play Cerberus. I don't know. Yeah, poison and disease do get through to this, but, I mean, disease is very rare, still. Poison, of course, is, well, this is a monster, so it's curable. So you can address it, and people were pointing out Bluelian earlier, and even now. So, Bluelian plus this does make a very powerful tank. The thing is that you don't... The reason I was calling out the lack of taunts is it's difficult to force... You don't have to attack this. It's like, great, I have a big tank. But do you have to... You can just ignore it and go around it and fight the other things. It's going to be interesting to see. Because this feels like it's super powerful. This feels like it's very powerful, or potentially very powerful, but it doesn't directly impact the board. And that's the thing. You extend its life total by a lot with Peekaboo, but in order for it to actually impact the board, it has to become vulnerable. Does the model change? Well, yeah, it does, right? Like, the model changes where I think I saw it's only his nose is above ground when he's protected, right? It is his nose. It is his nose. Wherever he went. Here he is. There's one that has 3 things for each side of his head. Moly Bully has 2 for each side of his head. Is that true? Oh, you're correct. We've never actually seen his eyes. Do you when they, like, lean forward to attack something? I just always assumed the nostrils were eyes. A lot of people assume that, but yeah, these are supposed to be nostrils. When he's defending, his nose is popping out and he raises his arms to block when he gets attacked. Okay, I didn't see the block, but I did see the nose popping out of the ground. Alright, Honda, have a good night. Take it easy. So yeah, I'm excited about Tiny Tim. I think Tiny Tim has some potential. I'm less excited about it than some of the other Phobies because I think Peekaboo can just kind of be ignored. I don't know that it... I mean, it has pretty significant damage output, but given that it's melee and you can walk away from it, what do I think about Peekaboo on a Heart Rush? I don't hate the idea. I don't hate the idea. The problem is that if you just completely ignore, or rather, excuse me. Yeah, let's put it this way. If you bum rush the heart with Tiny Tim, and your opponent just beats on it with everything they have, it's still gonna die. It doesn't matter that it has 3,200 health. Like, imagine if you put out Dozer and just ignored everything and just walked to the heart. Your opponent's still gonna annihilate it. To use the ability, you have to do the opposite of what most Phobies does. I agree, and I think that's part of the thing that's confusing about it, that may be deceptive about this Phobie, is that you don't necessarily, like, it's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive. The problem, so the real question with Tiny Tim is this. Can you double move and just sit there and be fine? Because you double move in, they beat on him, he lives. You get 2 attacks then, because they didn't leave. You're probably not going to survive the sustained follow-up, but that might be good enough. That might be good enough. For 6 keys, though, like, think about its competition. How often are you going to want to do this versus Klepto or Ginsting or Attractor or Crushmore? And the other ones are more, or even Octonaughty. Like, the other ones are more situational, but you get what I'm saying. I think you're going to be hard-pressed to say, I want something with a big old booty when I could just have Hematic Ginsting instead. Or Cerberus. Lol. Don't get me wrong. I think we're going to see Tiny Tim. And I'm excited for the first breakdown we get where we see Tiny Tim just beeline for the heart. But as Orzeus is pointing out, their comment reminds me of something. This is a way to try and solve the melee problem. What is the melee problem? The melee problem is that the fact of the matter is that melee phobies are generally just worse, right? Melee phobies are almost always worse than an equivalent range phobie because they have to be in melee and the range phobie can hit you from range. Like, range is a valuable ability, quote unquote. And Tiny Tim with Peekaboo does kind of solve that to a degree because you can inch up and get closer. It's going to be interesting to see how this works. I think the main problem is not having enough damage to kill it, but not having enough actions on your existing phobies to kill it. There's a difference, especially on small maps. You only have so many actions you can attack with. What are the odds you're going to have 2 actions to attack twice with every phobia on the board you have? Extremely unlikely. I think that's going to be the big thing. So what I think Tiny Tim will do is lead to charge, right? You get in with Tiny Tim. Their odds are they're not going to kill it, right? Even if they lay into it with everything, they're probably not going to kill it. Then you back it up with everything else, and then your follow-up attack should decimate their forces. Like, just completely annihilate them, more than decimate. Because you're going to end up just crushing, like, you'll get 2 attacks from Tiny Tim because it lived, and then everything else follows up. I don't know, I'm selling myself on Tiny Tim, truthfully, the more I think about it. I'm selling myself more on Tiny Tim, but it still feels like, I don't know, like, how much is... Now, mine's level 4, but this is almost 3k health, so comparable health, right? 436 damage versus 475. This has burrow movement. Red Speedola has tag team instead of the other stuff. How often do you see Red Speedola just coming down? Granted, it doesn't have as much health. It doesn't do as much damage. It's not as mobile. But it's similar. Like, it's not out of the ballpark. You know what I mean? I don't think that... I can see a world in which Tiny Tim is very good. I don't know how much Tiny Tim we're going to see. I'm very curious to see how this plays out. To be fair, mechs do have higher stats. I mean, yes, but that's not really where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this is if we assume that Speedola is a... Because for most intents and purposes, the Phobie type is irrelevant. Well, at least monster mechanical kind of thing. If we're talking stats, they're mostly irrelevant. Like, there's the electrical weakness, but who cares? And one can be poisoned, but then it can be cured. Like, all right, yes, there are differences, but that's not really the important part. The important part here is that we're talking about a quote-unquote 3,200 health Phobie versus a close to, it's close to 3k health Phobie. So, is that enough? Tiny Tim is good at body blocking, so is Boomer, for 5 keys less. So, yes, you're not wrong. Do I want to spend 6 keys to have something stand in front? I don't know. I feel like Tiny Tim falls just short of besting Quagmire. I don't think Tiny Tim is as good as Quagmire. My immediate reaction is Quagmire is better. Body blocking while attacking? Sure. Is that something you really want to invest 6 keys for? I don't know. I'm truthfully, chat. Truthfully, I am torn about Tiny Tim. I think that there are, as I said earlier, there's a world, maybe multiple worlds, that I can see Tiny Tim being really strong in. I don't think it's going to dominate boards, like to completely take over games. I mean, it could. But in my head, I'm picturing the Akiras, the Hevos, the boss of the world. I invest 6 keys in Cerberus so I can in Tim. All right. I think that says it all. Let's talk about Ogre, our resident Shrek enthusiast. Ogre is a 7 cost, 1,700 health, 2 move, 2 range, 400 damage Phobie with rage. He hulks out. Why does Ogre hulk out? Gets plus 300 damage when my heart's HP is less than or equal to 300. So, if anybody's hanging out in my Discord, link in the description, by the way, or ! Discord on the live stream, my comment about Ogre was, this is the most interesting, boring Phobie on the face of the earth. Which sounds really weird. Now, where the hell is Donkey? Yeah, we need Donkey. Ogre is the most interesting, boring Phobie. Why is that? Well, it's just a big dummy who punches good. But he does have an ability that changes. Now, what's unique to me, among other things, is that it doesn't scale with the map. It's not like when my heart is below 40%. Now, granted, they probably didn't want to make this complicated by making you do additional math to figure out, well, if I take this much damage and then it's here, is that percentage, like, maybe. It's a little weird just because clearly this guy is better on small maps than big maps, right? Or at least I would think it's way easier to hit that threshold. But regardless, once Ogre's active, this is 700 damage at range. That's a huge, huge amount. Like, that's an enormous amount of damage, especially if you can get 2 hits. Like, for comparison, let's look up Cerberus real quick, who I assume has the single target largest. Cerberus at 6 keys is 1,000 damage, but it's 1 move and undead, so it can be poisoned and diseased with impunity. I mean, you can disease this guy, but you can cure poison off of this guy. Blondie is 700 damage. Fish Tank is 700 damage. Smother Mother is 800. We're talking about level 1 here, of course. Boo Fairy is 600. Morty is 700. Morty is 700. Hydra is 700. We're talking about some mostly immobile Phobies. We're not talking about... The majority of them are very slow-moving Phobies. Point is that this is a mobile Phobie at range that can pour out a ton of damage. But it requires you getting beat up. My first thoughts about this is that this phobie is a teaching phobie. So if you played card games before, one of the arguments for releasing... I don't agree with that, Akune, but we'll come back to that. Let me finish this thought. So if you played card games before, one of the things that commonly comes up as a defense of printing bad cards is that it teaches people that they're bad cards. In a similar vein, and there are other cards that teach other things, other reasons that they are good, or this strategy works, or this doesn't work, or whatever. Ogre teaches players. What does it teach players? It teaches them to expend their heart health as a resource. It doesn't necessarily... Like, we may never actually see Ogre. I mean, obviously we'll see it a little bit, but Ogre may end up being awful. Because it doesn't matter. Maybe 7 keys and 1700 health is just not good enough. Despite the damage. I'm not saying that's the case, but maybe it is. But Ogre will teach players that spending your heart health like a resource to be like, hey, I can take this damage and then just do this other thing. Because you were dicking around trying to either rush my heart, you were trying to cap panic points while you were hemorrhaging phobies, whatever. And then you learn how to properly manage the game. Because the goal is to win, not to have the most heart health. And you can win through multiple ways. You can even end up losing all your heart health, even though you jumped out to a huge advantage. And Ogre, I think, will reinforce that point. Just because people will get beat by this. Absolutely. Plus, you'll get those surprise hits where people overextend to go after the heart. And they're like, oh, by the way, my vault is right here. Pop out Ogre and obliterate your team. Sort of thing. But anyway. To Akune's point, it punishes people who want a heart rush. Good idea. I disagree with that. I think Heart Rush should always be a viable strategy. I think that Phobie Destruction, Panic Point Control, and Heart Rush should all remain equally viable strategies. Now, that's not to say that this is going to eliminate it. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, if you allow your opponent to jump on your heart, like say it's Moai, you're not just going to pop out Ogre and go, yep, your entire offense is crippled because I have Ogre. You have to move it into position and then attack. Your opponent could just burn down your heart in that time still. There's no guarantee that you're going to complete the game in your favor by allowing your opponent to beat your heart up and then slamming Ogre on the board. Is like an expensive Stairmaster that relies on having your heart damaged? Yes, exactly. And I'm curious to see whether it ends up being better on big or small maps. Because you would think small maps, oh, it's easy to, or easier, to get your heart into range. To then get the buff and then go off. But on big maps, maybe you can, early on in the game, both get this guy on the board and take more damage early on, get lower faster, because there'll be more panic points. And then you can turn the game around. I don't know. We'll have to see. Overall, I like the idea of Ogre. It's a little bit weird to me that it doesn't scale big map, large map, aka it would have to be percentage of your heart health, because the big maps, you have more health. But I don't know. Like I said, this is the most interesting, boring phobie, because it is a big dummy that, well, as chat pointed out, it's a big dummy who shoots good. If you lose early board position and lose half your heart HP, that'd be a great comeback phobie, so I think it's best played in a losing position. I mean, yes, that's the express purpose of it. Or at least I believe to be the express purpose of it. The thing is that I don't think the game plan... Because we're going to see a lot of people lose a ton of games and then go, Ogre is bad. Because they just allowed them... Like, they let their opponent do a ton of damage to them, not realizing how much tempo they're losing because they're not properly fighting in the right way. But I think that it's fine if you are trying to... Ogre, I think, will be best when you are trading your heart health for their phobies. AKA, you let your opponent overextend to cap panic points, to hit your heart, which realistically at higher levels doesn't happen a lot. Those sort of things, you pick off their phobies. And then you slam Ogre, and all of a sudden, whatever their big thing is that they're trying to take over the game with, they can't. Because your Ogre's there to go toe-to-toe with it. Or just annihilate and clean up the rest of their forces. That's the way I'd look at it. But yeah, Ogre, I love what I'm assuming is... get a little big brain action. I love that Ogre is seemingly a Shrek reference. We got the layers. There's lots of layers to these plays, just like Ogres. Just like Ogres. We have Whuffalo Will. Silence of the Lamb fans, rejoice, I guess? I don't know. Is that weird? Is that weird? So, I will get this out of the way. I mentioned it earlier, but my big irritation with this guy is that it was listed as surname Whuffalo, given name Will. So it's really Will Whuffalo, not Whuffalo Will. Unless he's introducing himself like James Bond. Like, I don't know. That's never going to stop bothering me. But anyway, that's not the important thing. Whuffalo Will is a 7 cost, 2200 health, 1 movement, 1 range Phobie. 450 damage. Well, oh, new friend. Controls an enemy for 4 turns. 1 turn warm-up and a 4-turn cooldown. I love the little symbol down here. Controls an enemy unit. Cannot control an enemy unit on the turn you convert it. So basically, you can't take it and then immediately do stuff with it. Unit is controllable on the following 2 turns, immediately after opponent regains control. I'm a little confused by this. It says unit is controllable on the following 2 turns. So I guess it's 1, 2, 3, 4, if that makes sense. I have to see this in-game. I'm a little confused. 2 turns is incorrect. It should be 3 turns. The team is aware. Okay. Getting it live from Twitch chat. That's a known, and apparently this is a good bug causing phobia. I mentioned that when we were talking about it previously with the Great Vendy Hunt. I have to imagine this is up there with the buggiest phobia, if not the buggiest phobia. This has to be intensely complex. This has to be, it absolutely has to be intensely infuriating from a coding perspective. I can't imagine that this wasn't insane. But, oh, Glob was more buggy? Wow. But yeah, double boss, double boss is, okay, that's 15 keys, but for 15 keys, if you get double boss, that's pretty good. So we had a lot of speculation pre-release as to how this would function, what the details would be, all those sort of things. We finally have Will Whuffalo. It actually can attack. It's a little bit surprising. Notably, I think this is supposed to be an undead shark rather than a whale. And it's just kind of like Will, who is the bug here, is kind of bursting out of the shark's dome, I think? Maybe? Not really sure. This is a cool net new mechanic. And I'm very excited to see where it goes. Because there's the... So here's the thing. I'll be honest. I don't have any idea how this is going to play out. Because this could either be absolutely broken. Because think about it. You are... And there are questions about this, which actually are worth mentioning now before we continue. If you're maxed phobies, can you mind control something to get a 6th phobie? Does it count or not count against your opponent's max phobie count? What happens if they're maxed phobies and you're about to give this back because it turns off? Like, I don't know how any of those behave. I don't know if anybody knows right now other than the devs. But there's a lot of questions with this, and that's why I'm saying this could be absolutely busted, or this could be hot garbage. And it's too costly, too slow, but I kind of doubt that's going to be the case. Now, here's the thing. The range on Whuffalo New Friend is 1. You have to be right next to them. So this is going to be tough. This is going to be tough to actually manipulate, but the payoff is just insane. It's 1 move and abilities, 1 range, so it's going to be hard to get, maybe. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, Firkin is just going to crap on this, right? Paddle's going to come in clutch. Yeah, I saw people mentioning Paddles earlier. Paddles is an option. But at the end of the day, then you're still just making a regular Phobie. You know what I mean? Think about how many times you've tried to connect a melee Phobie. And how difficult that can be. Now you're asking for 11 keys to try and... I mean, don't get me wrong. The payoff is worth it. The payoff is worth it. And we're going to... I am legitimately vibrating with excitement for the future game breakdowns where Will Whuffalo is just tearing people apart. Because this thing is going to be hilarious. I'm going to fall out of my chair laughing. Will Whuffalo is just going to be a monster. But you have to put in a significant amount of effort to make this thing happen. I think that the thing about Whuffalo, similar to a lot of other Phobies, is the soft power that Whuffalo exerts. Your opponent must respect Will, right? You must respect Will. You can't allow Will to connect with your important stuff, right? That's just axiomatic. So if your opponent's just constantly retreating, aren't you winning? You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting to see. It could work like you take control of the enemy Phobie and it still takes 1 Phobie space and will exceed the max number of your Phobies. So it just counts against both of your Phobie counts, is what you're saying, Silver? It's possible. It's possible. But we did have that game from Hope Loy and Onda earlier. I don't know if that's how it works. I don't know. I think it only works with combat Phobies combined with freeze. I don't think I quite follow what you're saying, Marcisi. Just gets countered by Heartbreaker and Pits. I mean, yeah, you're asking to counter a 7-drop with an 8-drop. And that assumes that you... Like, are you going to spawn Whuffalo preemptively? I don't think a lot of people are going to. They're going to spawn Whuffalo in response to a Hevo, in response to a boss, which may not be correct. Maybe you have to spawn it proactively. But yeah, if you're going on the once lore and you put Will Whuffalo down and it gets Heartbreaker, well, you brought it on yourself. What do you want me to tell you? Use it with close combat Phobies or combining with freeze. Gotcha. Okay, so you're using them to run a screen, the melee Phobies, or use it with freeze so that you can freeze them and then mind control the frozen Phobie. Gotcha. I think that's reasonable. But yeah, I'm excited to see Will. I think Will is the biggest buzz hydrate. I'm out of water. I think Will is the one that's going to excite people the most, right? Just paddles a tractor Akira? Yeah, it's that easy. Just have a billion keys. Just do it! We did them all, chat. We did them all. What are you most excited for, chat? Is it Will? Akune is saying you're only excited for Rockus. I refuse to believe that. 8 Phobies. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not doing the whole thing. I can't do the voice that long. I'm tired. Chat, I'm excited about this update. So far, you love ice cream? I can see it. I am, as of right now, chat, my plan is to wait for the next content affiliate coffee disbursement, do a big pack opening. I mean, we have almost 50k tiers, and I'll have like 1,800 coffee. You're excited for Creepy? I could see that. For me personally... Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually really excited for Wiggy. I know that sounds weird. But the reason, and not in general, but I'm excited for Wiggy for Tiny Terrors. Which, if you're not familiar with Tiny Terrors, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but hit up the Random Thoughts Discord. It's basically a pauper format where you can only use commons and uncommons for Phobies. I want to try it out and see if this format makes sense, if it's even fun to play. But I'm excited for Wiggy for that format. Overall, I don't know. It's probably a tie between Will and Dial. It's probably a tie between Will and Dial. With a very close with Ice Cream. Maybe Ice Cream over Dial. Definitely Will up there because it's so interesting. It's also nice we got a few commons and a few cheap phobies. Absolutely. I mentioned that earlier, that I'm glad that there were things at the lower end of the curve. The lower end of the curve has... I don't want to say it's been ignored. I'm sure it was intentional, but... First glance, Creepy Devil almost looks like a boar. His face is essentially a nose. Yeah, that's why we're saying he's the... DT was calling him the Wart Frog. Which, given the model, yeah, it makes sense. Given the model, it kind of makes sense. We're loading up this game because I know everything but Ogre is in this game, I think. I think everything but Ogre is in here. But yeah, I'm very excited for these. I'm very excited for the new maps. I want to see what they're like. Ah, that is fantastic. Will is so creepy. It's unsettling. Only phobies I don't have in the album are Rusty and Ogre. Ogre, I forget, in my Discord, somebody said whose game it was. I forget whose it was that I was able to look at and get them. Okay, so here's the thing. Most of the phobies, well, first of all, Creepy Devil here, these look like eyes, not nostrils here. I didn't look at it that, like, this looked like nostrils here on the image, but here it looks like a face, and now I can't unsee the face. I can't unsee the face on the art now, chat. Does Wiggy look like it's animated in less frames? I don't think so, but Wiggy looks way too close to a real bug. Like, the other phobies look like, oh, they're these cutesy monsters. Even the spiders, like, they look like funny-looking monsters. This looks like an earwig. I mean, granted, there's some artistic license here, but this looks like it could absolutely be a real bug. Sarcasm looks like a normal tarantula. In what world does that look like a normal tarantula? It's not this planet. On planet Earth, that's not what a tarantula looks like. There's Tiny Tim. He's just a little guy. He's just a little guy, chat. Got the mind control on this. Go back and watch the bug? What, the... Go back and watch, what? Wiggy? Or you mean that? Oh, Will's bug. Tiny Tim has the same nose holes as Mully Bully in game. Yeah, it's a mostly reused model, as far as I can tell. Like, the animation is... Maybe it's doing the same animation underground or something. It's so gruesome, you're not wrong. Some of the Phobie animations and attacks and stuff are just, like... wildly descriptive, we'll say. What? I want to see the attack. That's kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie, I can't unsee the face now. It doesn't look like a warthog anymore, chat. It just looks like a quadrupedal demon for Creepy Devil. I love how it slicks back its hair with its saliva. The eyes on Rockus are funny, where it's just like the eye randomly like balloons out. I think most of the reskin Phobies have unique animations, though. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. Wait, what is happening here? Why is this? Oh, this got dialed, right? Is that what happened to this? Ice Cream. I love Ice Cream for the name. Kaboom didn't move. This isn't a real game. This is Hoploy showing off. Which, truth be told, shout out to Hoploy for allowing us the opportunity for people to see all these things. Obviously, Onda with 23 keys is not like... This isn't a real game. Got a little pogo stick action here. Chad, I'm looking forward to trying to get some of these Phobies. Creepy Devil attacks like the Tasmanian Devil from Looney Tunes. It didn't move Kaboom while it was controlled. I want to see it move to see if he can control it. I mean, yes, but there's really not much to show, right? Well, I take it back. Maybe the animations change while it's controlled? I guess that's possible. Why is Dial's ability the funniest thing ever? Because it's hilarious, that's why. The art team has always done a great job with Phobies and attention to detail. There's a huge attention to detail in all of it. Hoploid did explode my Kaboom and undid it because it's a replay. We can't see it. Fair. Fair. Completely reasonable. Any Phobie can become captivated from an old Western playing on TV. Look, we've all got our weaknesses. Dial's a little ray of sunshine. He's just happy to be here. True. He's just happy moving his little feet up and down. Dial is happy. I do find it hilarious that Dial is an old-ass CRT TV. You can't even get those anymore. It's actually a big deal within the Super Smash Brothers community. To play Melee, you kind of need a CRT TV. So you have a bunch of people for like Melee tournaments toting around 70-pound TVs, and they need like 100 of them. Which is hilarious to me. Chad, I'm looking forward to this update. Like, actually getting in on this update. The red dot on the side of his dial is... Yeah, exactly. I don't think I mentioned that before, but yes, you can see the dial. Or his eyes on the side. It kind of looks like a dial. Rockus, no. Dwayne Johnson, yes. What's weird about Will Whuffalo, even after Whuffalo pops out of his forehead, Will is perfectly fine and keeps moving. Yeah, maybe he reproduced in there. I don't know. Which implies it isn't dead. There have been a lot of weird mind-controlling things in media lately. Like, obviously, The Last of Us has kind of resurfaced again. Not that it ever really went away. It's not like it was very old or something, but... But chat, I think I'm going to close it up early. I just wanted to spend some time talking about the update because I was so excited. I was so excited. As mentioned earlier, I'm not going to be doing a pack opening just yet, but hopefully we can do that soon, and that means that we'll have some new Phobies to play with. We'll have some new things to experiment with. I'm very much looking forward to seeing these Phobies in action, whether it's from doing game breakdowns, from submitted games, looking at other people's games or other stuff. This was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. I hope everybody else is as excited as I am for this update. Shout out to the devs again. Happy birthday to Vendy and all the other Phobies. I'm very happy. I'm looking forward to another year with more Phobies. But that's going to do it for tonight, chat. I appreciate everybody coming out, spending time with me as we're looking at the 1.6 update. But until this weekend, as always, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And Black Lives Matter.